Welcome to Goldfish on Games and Budget Game Reviews. Today's subject of a cheap review is Quattro Power Machines. This is 4 games by the Codemasters bundled into a single box, and this is for the Amiga. If we check the back, we find Violator, Nitro Boost Challenge, Grand Prix and Pro Powerboat. An excellent 4-game compilation pack, amazing value for money. Now this cost about £8 when it was released, so we'll see if it was actually worth it. Inside the box we find 2 floppy disks, 2 games on each disc, and a manual that barely fits in the box. And it's a bit weird seeing that it is one single great big fold out page. There is nothing on the back, so really they could have done this in half the size if they wanted to, but they decided to go with this. But it does go over a reasonable amount of detail on each of the games, including, well, it's Codemasters, so they have to try and pimp out the rest of their titles. So, is it any good? Is it worth the money? Let's find out. As we can see, each disc comes with its own little menu, which allows us to select which game we want to play. In this instance, we have Super Grand Prix and Violator. So let's just hit F1 and start off with Super Grand Prix.
3, 2, 1, go.
And based on the name, you might have guessed that this is a racing game. And we actually have 4 different options here. We can either go with F1 cars, we can go with bikes, we can go with dragsters, or we can go with a weird and wacky matchup. And I feel it's probably a good idea to start with the F1 cars. And as you might be able to guess, this is a single screen racer. It's all top down, and that red car is mine, and yep, I can't control it at all. It'll be no shock to you that the goal is that you have to come in first, and we've got 4 laps to do it in. Now as you can see, this isn't particularly easy, mostly because the size of the cars makes it difficult for you to overtake, and the winding track also makes it quite difficult to find overtake opportunities. And on top of all that, there's actually damage as well, so every time I hit something, I'm doing some damage to the car. But as we can see, the computer controlled cars don't seem to take any damage at all, which isn't all that nice. There are no boosts or anything like that in this game, though there is an oil slick that the cars seem to always hit. And with that, our first race is over, and let's see what the scores are. First, second, third, and failed. If you're not first, then you're nothing in this game. So let's try out a few of the other modes. Next up has to be drag racing.
1, go.
Which we have even less control over than we did before, though there is a parachute that will slow you down, though it never feels like you actually get fast enough to really need it. And you might also have noticed that the map is exactly the same. All of the races have the same set of courses that you have to compete on. So let's jump on to one of the other modes that I can actually win on, and we can see some of the other tracks. Which means racing on the bikes. For some reason I find this far easier to control than any other mode that we've played so far. And yeah, it actually isn't too bad once you get the hang of it. But it does feel as soon as you get out in front, the game becomes much easier, because trying to get through the pack can be quite difficult. Though to be honest, the 9 or so courses don't really seem to be the party piece of this game. That is the 4th mode, which is just pure insanity. In this mode, we get to select what we race as, and as we can see there's quite the range of weird and wacky devices. Tanks, JCBs, even a Sinclair C5.5. It's a bit odd, and when you actually get into the race itself, well, it turns out some of the vehicles are terrible, like that tank. It's just way too slow to be able to win any races, even if you can shoot. What does seem to matter is that F1 car, that seems to be able to really get out in front and then just stay there. And the Sinclair C5.5, well, it's so slow it just gets stuck behind everything, and then you'll get lapped multiple times. It is really quite bad. So let's skip on to the next game, Violator. Which from the loading screen I think we can guess is going to be a shoot 'em up. And after getting past the moody title screen, we find a vertical shooter. Now, I'm not the best at these type of games, so we're probably not going to see a lot of it, but I will try and show off everything that I can. We are playing as that bright red Apache helicopter. Doesn't seem like the right colour to me, but hey ho, I didn't make the game. And at first glance we can actually see this is much better than the shoot 'em up construction kit games that we've seen previously. It moves at a decent rate, it's got smooth scrolling, you can move around the screen quite easily, and there's a lot on it at once. And on top of all that, you have health, and there's even weapon upgrades. And at times there's enough bullets on screen that it almost feels like a bullet hell game. So they have actually done a decent enough job. Now when you spot other helicopters on the screen, quickly take them out, as these are where you get your power-ups from. The weapon upgrades are really quite good, though you are limited with how much ammo you have. But these things will also drop more smart bombs, more lives, and more health. As you have health, thankfully you can tank a few hits, though if you do hit any other flying objects you will get destroyed straight away, so you still have to be quite careful, particularly if you're near the bottom of the screen, as it does have a habit of sending up big objects at once. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, well, time to use the smart bomb. It's a fun enough little vertical shooter, even though I'm not all that good at it, but then I've never been all that great at them anyway. I have to say the only real downside of this one, well, is probably its name. What is up with that? So I think it's probably time to move on to the next disc, where we get a similar menu and, to be honest, a similar set of games. We have Powerboat Simulator. As you can almost guarantee that at least 1 in 4 CodeMasters games at this time had to have the word simulator in its title, and Nitro Boost Challenge. And Powerboat Simulator is our first game that we're going to play. And even if I didn't show you the title screen, or even tell you what the name was, this game will let you know as it puts it everywhere. Your goal is quite simple, maneuver your powerboat through these winding rivers to make it to the end of these surprisingly long tracks. But there are going to be a bunch of things that's going to get in your way, including other boats, helicopters that drop mines, and just, well, anything else that you can imagine being on the water. I'm not entirely sure what sport they're trying to simulate here, because unless someone corrects me in the comments, I can't think of any that would allow you to drop mines to detonate your opponents. Unless things were a bit different in the 90s. But I could be wrong here. As you are meandering your way up the course, there is a few items that you want to try and pick up. The flags give you more time, the capsules with F give you more fuel, the ones with a Q on them give you more mines, not entirely sure where the link is there, and the ones that look like little boats give you more lives. Now you do have to be quite careful or very precise when you hit the other boats, as both you and them will go flying. And if you're not careful, then you'll go straight into a set of rocks or a bank and lose a life. But if you do manage to make it through these surprisingly long tracks, you get a chance at the bonus run, where you're going to be weaving your way through these gates. Every time you hit a gate, you'll gain some points. And if you manage to hit all of them, then you'll get an extra set of bonus points on top of that. Now as we make it to the next round, we find out that these levels are actually themed, with the second one being based around the River Thames in London. Though to be honest, I don't remember seeing these ramps. And you have to be careful with them, because if you pick the wrong one, then you're going to end up landing on a building and crashing. So let's move on to the last game, Nitro Boost Challenge, which turns out to be the very first game that the Codemasters made for the Amiga. The game itself is very similar to the previous one, where we have to make it from the bottom of the map all the way to the top, but this time we're a stunt driver, which doesn't really mean much in practice, but it is a nice touch. The name comes from the fact that we can use turbo boosts, which can be very useful for getting around the map quickly. But you have to be careful because pretty much everything is out to get you. And while you can take damage, a lot of things will just outright kill you in one shot. you do actually have some weaponry. You can fire backwards to take out the things behind you, or straight up to try and take out those that are flying. Though in practice it can be quite difficult to take out the flying objects. You can even reverse if you found yourself going down the wrong path. And as you continue, you'll find you're not just stuck in a car, as later levels have you driving around in a boat, which really makes it feel like the previous game. Though I will say the collision detection here is absolutely terrible. Overall, this is a pretty frustrating game to be honest, and is easily the worst in the pack. So this isn't the greatest pack of games ever made, though it is a lot better than if you bought these individually. So until next time, I've been the Goldfish, that was the Quattro Average Machines, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thank you for watching this budget game review, I do hope you enjoyed it. And if you've got memories of this game, good or bad, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. And if you really enjoyed the video, then there's buttons below that you know what to do with. Or if you're not sure yet, then there's 2 other videos on screen that you can check out right now.